You finally did it. You worked up the nerve. You turned to your partner and said it out loud. I need help. I can't do this one alone tonight. Maybe it was the dishes. Maybe it was bedtime with the kids. Maybe it was something you'd been carrying for a year that finally cracked open at the dinner table. You held your breath without meaning to. You tried to keep your voice light. You tried to act like the answer didn't really matter, but it did. And then you watched the look on their face. It was a beat too long before the answer came, and a little too tight, a little bit of hesitation. Yeah, you got the yes, but it felt like it cost them something. So the next time you decided you needed something, you weren't going to ask, you just handled it. And you did this day after day until one evening you looked across the couch at the person that you've been living with for 10 years and realized that you're lonelier with them in the room than you are without them there. I'm Staci Bartley, and I'm a relationship mentor who helps couples and singles learn the relationship skills that are keeping them stuck. And by my side are my co-host and lover, Tom, and our daughter, Brooke. This is Love Shack Live, the show for anyone at a relationship's crossroads, worn out by the same arguments and the same silences and the quiet that happens when the bond starts to not feel genuine anymore. So today we have a question that inspired this episode that actually came from a video on TikTok and Instagram. Are you an asker or are you an assumer? At first, it sounds like a personality quiz until you realize this one little question begins to explain why so many committed relationships drift quietly into loneliness, why couples who love each other still feel very unreachable to us, and why the village, the community around us, feels non-existent. So today in this episode, we want to dig into why most of us default to the assuming part instead of the asking. And it's really costing us to not be able to ask for the things that we actually need. And so it's time we dive into that conversation.
Hey, thank you for coming. Welcome to the Love Shack.
So let's do a gut check here around the table with the three of us, shall we? Okay.
Sure.
No thinking. First instinct, would you say you're an asker or an assumer?
I'm 100% an assumer.
Yeah, I'm an assumer.
You're an assumer? Yeah. I would say I'm an asker, but that
you
makes
100%
sense.
are an asker.
I would concur. Yeah, I'm not surprised at any of our answers.
No.
From us three. It's a very small metric, I would agree, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's the thing. In my opinion, most of us right now in our current day and age and culture are assumers, not askers.
I would agree.
In fact, we probably don't even know how to ask. We probably think we're asking, but we don't really realize we're not asking. We're probably complaining or blaming,
Hinting.
Mm-hmm. We're expecting that at some point in time, they're going to see what it is I need, see what it,
They're going to get the freaking hint.
And help me.
For God's sakes. Yeah.
And now that I'm thinking about it, when you say an assumer, I have to be honest, I was a little surprised because you are pretty good. But then I thought about the thing you say all the time, which is, you know what, honey, it doesn't take much to anticipate what people need. And I went, yes, that's assuming.
But I mean, I think I'm a pretty good studier of people, and so, certainly with you and I mean, you get with someone, even not your special someone close, family member or friend or whatever, you kind of study and understand their habits and things.
Yeah, but also, Dad, I think when it comes to your personal needs, you're kind of like me, is that you just kind of sometimes brush them under the table. And
But yeah, I always think of others before myself.
Yeah. But also you then can use that as not a weapon, but that's the fallacy of assumers, is that we think because we do so much for other people that other people are going to do the same for us, when really we're just writing ourselves out of the story because we're not asking for anything.
100%.
Well, you know what's going off in my head when maybe especially a male, let's just be honest. I would say women, just because we have children and we have to learn pretty quickly to kind of keep our eye on and anticipate the needs of our children and try and interpret what's going on when they can't talk to us, etc. We are really great assumers. But I can hear perhaps the females in the room going, oh my gosh, that would be so nice to just have a man say, hey, it's not hard to anticipate somebody's needs. But you feel like, to just open this conversation up, I want to share also that's not always all that special because it's thoughtful and it's wonderful and caring, but it also is excruciatingly maddening because you are doing things for me I don't want.
Right.
That's not helpful.
Well,
and how many
I think-
times have we had that conversation, right?
Yeah.
You think you're anticipating what I need or what would be helpful. But because the conversation never happens, I'm then in a high speed panic because what did you do? No, don't touch that. Don't do that. Don't go there. That's not helpful. That produces anxiety. How about this other thing? How about this thing? How about that thing? And so all of that to say, that's the part that maybe we don't realize that in the anticipation of somebody's needs, maybe it's not what they need. Right? I'm in that suite and we think, oh, I'll just anticipate it. I'll just be a step ahead of you. But sometimes that's not helpful.
You're a long-time listener, just so you know, I'm not setting the alarm clock for Staci anymore.
Well,
if
I
that
think
doesn't make any sense, that's an inside, you'd have to
That's
go
an
back a
inside
number
joke.
of episodes.
I also think it's like a spectrum. Anticipating that maybe someone wants a coffee and you're out and you're anticipating that they want it and you get it. Like that's pretty low risk. Even if they didn't want it, they're still going to be like, oh, that was so sweet. It's kind of a slippery slope because if you continue having that same assumption, then you can make much bigger choices that they're like, just what Mom 2 just said. No, I don't want that. I don't need that. Why did you do that? And then, the person thought they were having goodwill by anticipating your needs. And you were like, I didn't need that or want that at all. It creates a lot of conflict.
And I'm curious to have you speak up about this. That's got to be a really big disappointment when you're putting so much thought and intention in regards to showing somebody that you really love and care about them. That must be really disappointing in the act of assuming and anticipating somebody's needs because it's not like the thought and care didn't go into it. And then to have somebody say, that's not helpful. Please don't do that anymore. That's got to be a gut wrencher.
Well, I can only speak to you and I, when we're open about this because we want to be, maybe, but we're a team. We're not only life partners, but we're business partners. So my goal is you're a very strong, self-reliant woman. And so we're both very good at putting a lot on our backs. So my goal is really just to let me just help you if it can help things be easier and simpler for you. And if it's not, no worries, let me know and I won't do it. To be fair, like sometimes I'll say, babe, I'm putting your phone in your backpack as I'm getting ready to drop you off for, some local sessions at our local office, right? And you say, okay, thank you for letting me know where it is. So there's a dance, but my whole goal is because we do have a lot on our plates, it's always just to simplify. And I have to be probably more detail oriented because I also am a real estate appraiser and that's unbelievably detail oriented anyway. So we both need to be cray about this silly thing anyway. So let me just handle that. That's always really my goal. So it's maybe minimally, but I've gotten over that over our 15 years now.
An example, the three of us have kind of like a circle of trust or just like a deep foundation beneath our relationships with each other that we can pretty much tell each other anything and not get our feelings hurt. Because you could tell me, Brooke, I didn't really want you to do that, and I wouldn't get my feelings hurt. And that's not because I'm not a sensitive person. I just want you, the listener, to know that I'm a super sensitive person. But it shows you the power of having, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but just it's a good example of when you have emotional safety with people, you can take feedback and give feedback in a way that is really powerful because you don't get your feelings hurt. And it really avoids defensiveness and throttling the conversation because your feelings are so hurt and then you can't really even have the discussion the other person was trying to have with you because they have to make you feel better about the feedback that they're giving you. We don't really experience that with each other because we use the foundations that Mom 2 teaches, but that they really do go hand in hand. Like when you have the emotional safety underneath you, knowing that it's okay for you both, or the three of us, to speak our minds and share how we feel, it makes it so much easier to not take things personally.
Well, as much as the two of you think that you're assumers, you're not. Because here's the thing. When you're an assumer, you're sitting around anticipating what the person is going to say and do. And when it doesn't happen, there's an intent that happens. And if it doesn't happen, then the intent is there. It usually turns malicious pretty quickly. right? So the intent was they don't care about me. I don't matter to them. They're disregarding me. They don't want to understand me. They can't stand to be around me.
And we were assumers, but we've grown into askers. And in that initial gut check question, we quickly defaulted to our past selves.
Yeah, you're recovering assumers because here's the thing. I think that the thing that's important as it relates to safety is I don't go to a place, even if you were to say something that was hard to hear, I still am not going to go to a place where I feel like there's the intent of maliciousness.
Exactly.
I wouldn't bring something hard to the table to share with you if it wasn't because I care and it's impacting how I show up in this relationship. And I want to show up as my best. And I think that the way I'm going to show up in this is going to impact you. So I've got to say something. And so I think the safety is created because there's a good intent that we're consistently reaching for. And I think the three of us very much have that solid foundation where we know that if somebody's bringing something as difficult to the table, it's for good intent, not because you're trying to be malicious or just a straight up a-hole, you know.
Well,
and I'm looking for that intent of good. I'm looking for that care.
And it's been developed and practiced over a lot of years and a lot of what Staci likes to call emotional push-ups. That's the basis of it all. It just didn't happen over time. This is a constant evolution.
Well, and I think all relationships grow through a trajectory where we come in and it's wonderful and it's delightful. And then we start to see that contrast of our struggle and the parts that we don't want and that don't work for us and the things that hang me up that I didn't even know were going to hang me up and the parts that I'm challenged with in our relationship that I didn't even know I was going to be challenged with. Right? Because we don't know what's going to be brought up in us. And there's this rite of passage that every relationship goes through where I start to learn more about myself in this relationship and you do the same and we expect and anticipate it's going to be perfect and wonderful. And no, actually, we're going to start running into some bumps and that's normal. Everybody has to go through that as we're learning deeper aspects of myself in this relationship and what comes up and you're doing the same. And what's challenging is because we don't ask and we 9 times out of 10 assume, then we can go to that malicious intent very quickly. And so it won't be until we go through rounds of realizing that there is good intent here. I'm literally misunderstanding you and I don't quite know the recipe in regards to how you work and how you tick and what you need. And so now you start to layer on an assuming type of a behavior there. And now we're trying to all do the very best we know how, but we're really fumbling around in the dark because nobody's giving anybody any signals or any recipes that are going to help me support you. And the easiest way I can say it is we literally teach each other how to love each other best. And if we don't take on that responsibility for knowing what I need, which is the first breakdown problem. I don't know what I need really. I'm just reacting to not getting my needs met and assuming and hoping that you can fix it. That's going to be a problem because nobody's going to be able to love me in the way I need to be loved or support and help me in a way that I need to be supported and helped if I don't know what that is to teach them that. And they're going to give me a version or an acting out version of what they need because they're probably assuming too. And everybody very much feels like a failure who is trying to do the very best I know how, but it continuously does not translate, right? And that creates these cycles of fighting that we get in. And so then I set myself up to where I'm trying to control and manage you so that I feel better, but I can't figure out why it doesn't work, right? And so we end up going along with a lot of things without realizing, okay, the rite of passage is literally as I learn it to teach you and vice versa. And then I learn it again and it changes and then I teach it to you and I'm open to you teaching it to me. And so without the asking part, which again, we're horrible at, assuming is going to take us to a lot of heartache and internal struggle and strife. It's actually going to complicate things and add layers of complexity. But then here's the crescendo to the whole thing. We don't ever want to say no because we know they really want us there. So we say yes when we really mean no. We say yes when I don't have any capacity to give. And then there's a whole cycle of betrayal that happens on the backside of that. So you can start to see why relationally, whether we're talking about lovers or we're talking about communities and friends, we simply cannot have the conversations that we need to create the clarity and the support and the help to even begin to get our needs met. It's really a big problem.
Which is why we
are talking about this.
Yeah. So let's back up as to why
we're doing this episode on the first.
So we kind of did a really deep dive here on the front side, admittedly. Yeah. But let's talk about where this question really came from. I briefly mentioned it in the intro, but let's also talk about why this particular question was one that, like, yeah, you're right.
The fire.
We need to do a conversation on this. So, Brooke, you share with us where this all happened, because it actually came from your side first.
Okay. I was scrolling TikTok as I do every night, and it was just this. I don't even think it has very many views. It just for some reason showed up on my For You page, and it was a lady who is a mom, a young mom, and she said, there's a conversation going viral on Instagram right now, which is, are you an asker or are you an assumer? And she said, I thought that it was more common for people to be askers when I first heard the concept. But she said, taking a moment to think about it, I've realized that I think everyone mostly is an assumer. She said, I'm an asker, and I don't have any stress or problems asking people for things, asking favors from other moms wanting to get together for a play date or something. But she said, I took a beat and I realized that I was asking someone something, and the stress that appeared on their face from the small thing I was asking meant that they were having a much different experience receiving my ask than what I was feeling asking them. She was like, I was feeling no stress. I was just asking a simple thing. And she talked a bit longer, I think, and said, I think this is the reason that we don't have the village right now. Even in the 90s, like just not that 30 years ago, not that long ago, I would say we had more of a village. People got together so much more. Friends' parents took me to things that, when I was a kid. That happened so much more. And now we're so individualistic, and the village has collapsed. And I think COVID had something to do with that, which understandably so, because we all had to isolate. It was mandated, and we were doing it to keep ourselves safe. But doing it over the course of like a year and a half or 2 years, I think it ruined some people's social skills, and it made people's social anxiety spike, understandably so, because we lost the practice of interacting with people and asking people that weren't our immediate family for things. And so now it's gotten to the point where we ask people for favors, and it's like, would you do me a huge favor? And then you ask for a tiny thing, like hold the door open for me, or could I borrow your rake? I saw that video and it just gave me so many thoughts in my head. I left her 3 unbelievably long comments in response with just like brain dumping all my thoughts about it. 'Cause I was like, yeah, you have really hit on something here. You are right. We suck at asking. And I gave her a compliment saying the reason why you feel so little stress asking people for things is because you've done a lot of emotional push-ups around asking. And you're doing people a gift by asking because you're showing that it's possible. Even though it's stressing them out, you're opening the door to them being able to ask you as well. And when we stop asking, that's when it makes it safe for nobody to ask for anything, because we've kind of unknowingly, we've taken it off the table, which I think is we've had a mass casualty of asking in our society.
100%. You're causing me to remember when I was a kid, and as our listeners know, my father died when I was really, really small. And so my mom would go off to work, and we had a second mom that lived just around the corner, her and her husband. And you wouldn't miss a beat in running over there for anything. And I mean that literally. It didn't matter if it was a screwdriver or a cup of sugar or a pair of scissors or a backhoe or some extra medication from the pharmacy, because he was a pharmacist that he'd bring home. I mean, it was our go-to place. Now, God love them. Nothing got returned either. But they kept giving it. You look back as an adult and you go, oh my gosh, We never took the screwdriver, the cup of sugar, the measuring cup.
They were angels.
Oh, they were such angels. But I mean, half a beat, that's where we're going. A half a beat, that's
what
where
were their
we're
names
going.
again? Is that their first names?
Georgine Elkington was their last name.
Yeah, you've shared
it was
many
the
wonderful
Elkingtons.
stories about how helpful they were.
Incredible
and
human
instant.
beings.
Sure.
But I mean, that's really where I learned to ask.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a kid and we're perusing. I even would go over and say, I know how to play the piano. Let me play this beautiful song for you. And they would sit on the couch and listen to me play this god awful song.
True.
I'm sure.
True neighbor saints right there.
But it was common that they would come and ask us for help and support as well. Like, it was the village mentality.
Yeah, sure.
And it wasn't just one neighbor. There was a handful of neighbors that we knew we could do that with, right? And so I think, to your point, Brooke, the village really has collapsed. I'm looking at our own nuclear family now, right? And how many times we have to remind each other, why didn't you ask me about that? Why didn't you let me know you needed that?
We'll be right back.
You know that moment when your partner says something, your whole body goes hot, and 2 seconds later you say something you wish you hadn't? That moment has a name, and it's a missing skill. Here's what nobody taught us. Love isn't the problem in our relationships. Missing skills are. The ability to pause, to know what we actually feel, to say it in a way that someone can hear us. If you want to see which skills are already working for you and which ones are quietly tripping you up, take the Better Love Skills Quiz. It's free, takes less than 10 minutes, and at the end you get your Better Love Blueprint, a personalized look at where you're strong, where you're stuck, and exactly what to do next. Go to betterlovequiz.com. That's betterlovequiz.com. Your free blueprint is waiting. There was a really good conversation, another one on TikTok, that just exemplifies this even more. This woman was saying, I have dogs. I walk them every day through the neighborhood. We don't have sidewalks, so there's no place for the dogs to pee other than the grass. It's grass or the street, and a lot of dogs don't pee in the street. So she was talking about how she walked past 2 houses that had homemade signs that said, we don't poop and pee in your lawn, so don't poop and pee on our lawn. And like, I understand it to a point, but have we really gotten to a point where we can't let the neighborhood dogs pee in our grass? Like, where else are they supposed to pee? If they poop, of course I pick it up. I'm not suggesting that we leave our dogs poop on other people's lawns, but really, they can't take a little pee break? You know, that it makes me sad because that thought didn't even used to cross my mind 20 years ago. I'm sounding old at this. I'm sounding like an old geezer.
Well, we've come to a place, which is what assuming does, right? Assuming makes us protective.
Mm-hmm.
It really does, because we are more likely to not get our needs met. We are more likely to feel the malicious intent of others, that people are taking advantage of us.
Or that they're selfish.
Yeah. And if they do ask, then they're selfish or self-centered. And so it really set us up to feel more and more and more isolated, instead of that concept of I contribute to connect, right? What if the dog was peeing on the grass and you come out and, oh, hi, what's your name? What's your dog's name? How are you doing? And people would go, oh, I would never do that. But ask yourself why. What has become so scary? Why are we so afraid of each other? Even our people that are closest to us. What has become so scary there? What malicious narratives are we making up that are so awful that we can't open ourselves up and contribute to one another? Because I'll tell you what, going back to the Elkingtons, they contributed so much love and so much joy and so much support and safety to us that was way beyond the cup of sugar and the screwdriver that they would loan to us, or the tape.
Yeah.
That it made our place where we lived, where we grew up, feel safe.
When you know that it's possible for you to ask the people around you for help, even if you don't need it, it makes you feel like I'm okay, because I know that if I'm really in trouble, the people around me will help me. You know, that's invaluable. And now we don't even know our neighbors' names.
Well, and so that's a key. So why are we more assumers than askers? will realize that assuming comes from a baseline fear of me being afraid I'm too much, or me being afraid I'm too selfish, or me being afraid that I shouldn't be a burden or take up space or have needs that I can't meet on my own. So that the baseline experience of it internally for ourselves is coming from that of fear, not from a safe place of wanting to contribute and give to others. We contribute and give to others when we feel safe enough to do so. I ask for what it is I need when I feel safe and supported enough to do so. That my needs, my desires, my hopes and dreams have a safe place to even exist.
Like they won't be called stupid.
Yeah. So that's the first step of why it is more and more of us are assumers in this day and age, is because in a baseline place, we don't feel safe to even have a voice, to even have a need, to even have the longing for support or a hug. We're supposed to be these rugged individualists that can do all of these things on our own. It's weak to need somebody. It's weak to not be able to meet your own needs. And sometimes it's not even a need. It's just a desire to know I'm not in this alone.
Yeah.
And we can't even ask for that.
So the fundamental ingredients aren't even present.
The fundamental ingredients are not even present. Instead, we feel like it's not safe. We don't deserve it. We don't want to appear selfish because we've probably been told that from an exhausted parent who said, why are you asking?
Right.
Because you're 2 and 3 and that's what we do. And we're really good at it when we're young. But quickly we learn that it's selfish. It's unthinkable. The world doesn't revolve around you. Money doesn't grow on trees, all the things that we hear. And so we slowly stop asking and we turn into assumers and I would say manipulators, because the needs and desires don't go away.
Right.
Just the way we go about attempting to get them does. That's what changes, because the core needs and desires of a human being are still existent. We just get a little more tricky in regards to how we hope to get them. And our social cultural environment directly conflicts with our needs as a human being, right? As we've already touched on, it's interdependence, self-reliance, do it on your own, don't be weak, take care of it, don't be needy, don't be selfish. All of that leads us to this place where we are living in an unsafe feeling that sometimes I don't even feel like I can breathe. I don't want to be looked at as a needy person.
Right.
And so there you have it. Those are the thoughts that are going to shut us down from asking and stepping into that assumption in the first place, right? So that's going to become a problem. We're going to feel less safe and we're going to get more of our needs. They're not going to be unmet overall, just from that baseline premise.
And I think that's the beginning of how you stop knowing yourself. Because if you don't voice your needs, then where do they go? And then you stop identifying them. And then that's where you get to the point, I think, where you're like, I don't even know who I am, because you don't know what you need, because you've stopped talking about, asking for, discussing all of the things that you want and need.
So I'm so glad, because that's number 2. 1 is it comes from a place of fear. 2 is we don't realize that when I ask, I'm actually gaining the benefit of it, whether I get the thing I'm asking for or not. Because I am treating myself, my own voice, my own needs as important. They deserve airtime. It's okay for me to ask for them. And that is a very validating, personal validating experience to give myself, to your point. Because when I don't, and I'm saying just the opposite to myself, oh, don't say that. That's too much. It's going to be misconstrued. You're going to look needy, right? It's just over the top. You're being selfish. Am I being selfish? It starts to create a lot of internal chaos. And so then I feel like I get quieter and quieter and quieter, don't I? As the internal conflict and longing grows exponentially, like the pain gets bigger as I become more and more and more silenced. I'm falling apart. I'm turning into a shell of myself because I'm not able to verbalize what it is or explore what it is I truly do want. And so I get to a place where I don't even know. and validating, personally validating, what are you talking about? Right? I don't even relate to what you're talking about at all. And here's the kicker. Most of us don't realize that as humans, when I talk, I understand myself. That's why I need to talk. I'm working through my thoughts and feelings so that they make sense to me. And I just need an interested party to work a few things out with, who's willing to learn about me by listening. So when I talk, I understand and experience myself. And when I listen, I understand others. And so this is no small thing to become a voiceless person in the room. I literally start to feel like I disappear. And there is no safe place for me to share my thoughts and my desires and my hopes and dreams and ask for what it is I need. And I'm probably creating a lot of that internal struggle for myself because I will not allow myself the risk of asking in the first place.
Well, yeah, I mean, just the more that's dismissed and practice of not asking, the more we become like, how did I end up here? Well, we've just shared with you how you end up there. It's simply a product of how we're living individually and collectively. So the ingredients that's required are breaking down everywhere. And that's why most of us are assumers.
I just have a tiny caveat. It's the third social media conversation I'm bringing to you today. I don't watch this podcast, but apparently the Diary of a CEO isn't his name Stephen Bartlett.
Stephen Bartlett, excellent podcast. Very well, hugely popular.
Actually, there's a little drama with him, but in one of his last episodes, he said that he drank 3 glasses of wine on a night and it ruined his life. That's what he said. It ruined his life for the next 3 days. And everyone was like, that's a little dramatic, but it brought up a larger conversation, which I think loosely relates to what we're talking about now, because they were saying we're so obsessed with optimizing our sleep scores and being as productive as possible. And some of the more reasonable people that I listen to talk about this are like, first of all, that's very dangerous rhetoric that he's spreading, because sure, it's not good to be drunk all the time, but like, think about what he experienced while he was with his friends, like having joy, laughing, experiencing life, drinking 3 glasses of wine. Like, why are we're optimizing the joy out of our lives? We're so worried about our sleep score for the next 3 days that we're going to cut out the fun and the joyful and novelty time that we deserve. That's what life is about, really. Like, we're very quick now to cut out the fun, to cut out the meeting with our friends, to cut out the going out for drinks. Maybe because we want to optimize our life, but also because we're worried about money, and maybe we'll pick up some shifts instead because we can't really have that right now. So the whole point of why I'm sharing this is I think it adds to why we don't ask, because in the past, I feel like some of the things we asked for were to have experiences like that. Will you come out to dinner with me? Do you want to have a barbecue at your house? Do you want to have a pool? We also don't really ask those things anymore. So I feel like that really related to what we're talking about is life it feels so serious now. It feels much more serious now. And I think that's another issue that we're having, where we've lost the balance there and we don't really have little things to look forward to like we did before. And that's also made it harder to ask for them,
Well, in our breaking down, what's going to happen is the pain escalates from assuming that at some point in time it's all going to work out, is we start very much getting hyper-focused on the performance. That's the answer.
Yeah.
So if I can perform better, and if I can optimize it better, and if I can just create things like in a very strict way, then that's probably when I'm going to be happy. That's when it's all going to work out. That's when I'm finally going to be able to give myself some much deserved credit and acknowledgement and appreciation. And when I can knock it out of the park, maybe that's when I can have my voice heard, and I'll finally be able to muster up the courage to be seen in the room and to say what I need to say. And so you can start to see how we ratchet down on this performance, perfectionistic kind of thing. And all of a sudden things start to become very rigid and very strict. So I could see where 3 glasses of wine is really going to ruin your life for the next 3 days, because I'm going to see it all measured on my ring. That's
Yes.
telling me I'm a hot friggin' mess, and that's going to cause a lot of anxiety. So God love him. I totally get that, especially when we're coming from trying to dial it all in so that I can be successful and happy and joyful. And it's kind of like this idea that we're going to finally get to the good parts when I get it all figured out and perform it just right, without realizing, oh, my friends, we've got it all backwards. If we don't learn how to bring some joy and ask for the things that we truly desire and need and lean on each other for the help and support that we need, we're not going to make it to the land of perfect and performance,
Well,
right?
someone in the comments said, if our lives are kind of joyless at the moment, which I feel like a lot of people would agree that things are hard right now. In a lot of ways, things feel pretty bleak at the moment. They were like, and we've cut joy and like celebration out as well. What the fuck are we prioritizing longevity for? It kind of struck me like, wow, I've never really thought about that. You really need to put things into perspective that all you have is now. So sure, we should try to be as healthy as we possibly can, but not so much that it costs you everything to get there.
Well, and that's that delicate balance again. And we could have a whole conversation on the podcast about this piece of play and
Yes.
novelty and how important it is. And maybe we need to.
Yeah.
Maybe this kind of threads into the next conversation there very easily. But coming back to the assumer and the ask is very much so we're becoming very rigid and very afraid. And the first two things that we've identified is it's propagated from a place of fear within inside of me. And then it does get to a place where I don't ask. And if I do ask, it's probably coming from a place of complaining or blaming. And if I get loud enough and I complain enough and I criticize enough, then finally you're going to understand what it is I need without realizing, no, that's just going to break down our connection. And I'm not going to feel safe to have conversations with you. And you're not going to feel very good about the conversations you're having with me. And so then we use this place of guilt and obligation as our go-to. And that's supposed to be the ask that I've done for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And that's not at all what we're talking about either. And we also need to understand and have a brief conversation on the power of no, because when we do finally ask, then we feel like everybody's supposed to say yes because it's taken so much effort and energy from me to finally eke it out. You'd better say yes because you have no idea how painful this has been to get here. So you sucker, don't you dare say no after all I do. Okay. And there's a layer of resentment to even that.
Right.
So now we've got a secondary problem of everybody feels obligated to say, yes, I don't really get to give you an honest answer because everybody's struggling with the ask in the first place. So when finally someone lays it on the table, we feel obligated to say yes when we really mean no, or we don't have the capacity to say yes, but we'll figure it out. And so even in all of that, there's a lot of fear and illusion. So no wonder the village is falling apart. If I can't honestly say, heck yeah, come on over. I'd love to see you. Let's do this thing.
Or, you know what? I appreciate you asking, but I'm not in a position to take that on right now.
Yep. But I'd be willing to do that. So the thing that's interesting about no is we hold it as like it's the end all be all death without realizing no doesn't mean no forever. Commonly in these conversations, it means no, not right now, but I could offer this.
Right.
Let me create some understanding for you about no, because no comes from also a place of I don't know how. That makes me feel awkward. I'm not sure that's going to work for me. I'm not sure I have the emotional capacity, the mental bandwidth. Like there's a lot that's going on there that we never really talk about with someone else. We keep it all to ourselves. So then that curtails the understanding that people have of me and that I have for myself. And so often we say yes when we really mean no. And then that creates a whole additional layer of betrayal because while the word yes is coming out of my mouth, I'm thinking to myself, there's not a prayer chance in hell I'm doing that. Whatever. I'm going to talk my way out of that. I'll figure it out later. I just need to come up with a really good story, right? I'll come up with a really good story. And that's the same as me fulfilling my yes. No, it's not. You would be better off to say no. And here's what's coming up for me around that no. Not that I necessarily need to justify it, but I do want to create some understanding for myself and you in regards to why I'm saying no anyway. Am I saying no because I'm stressed? and I feel obligated? Or am I genuinely saying no? So now I don't even know when I mean no, or I don't even give myself permission to explore no, or I don't even understand my own no. It's just no, right? What else could we do? What could we explore together? Well, I don't know. Why are you asking me that? Why we got to go there? I said no. Well, the reason why I'm saying no is because I just want to shut the conversation down. This whole thing's making me really stressed out and uncomfortable. Okay. Can we just be over it now? And we miss out on the whole opportunity to create further understanding of ourselves and each other. Right. And so guess what that does? It creates more fear.
Right.
And so this simple little thing of asking tells us so much about where we're all living in our relationships. And oh, by the way, don't forget, relationships are a co-creation. It's a little of me mixed with a little of you. That's what creates the experience of us. And in a village, it's the collective us creates the sense that we're all in this together and we've got each other's back. And so just take a minute and think about that for a minute. There is no us anymore. We're not co-creating life together anymore. It makes me really sad. It makes me really sad because it doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
And that's how we get here. But now, importantly, I hope that you're starting to see from this podcast episode, it's starting to highlight where we got to go. And that some of these things that we're really struggling with, we've got to do a better job with. Let's let our armpits be sweaty for a minute. That's not a bad thing. Let's step into our awkward and uncomfortable feelings for a minute so that we can get better at something that's crucial for our sense of well-being overall.
Can you give us a couple super tips as we start to land this episode?
Yeah.
How the heck can we ask in a way that serves us and the greater whole?
Well, so it's so uncomplicated. It's simple. It's so simple. It's silly sometimes.
But simple's good. We need more simple now in all of our lives.
Hey, you know what's coming up for me? This. I'm noticing that when you ask, for example, what's coming up for me is I feel awkward and uncomfortable. Let me look at that. You know what I'd like to ask you for is just some time to think about it.
So those two, you could put each one of those in front of really any kind of an ask. What was the first one again?
Here's what's coming up for me. This, instead of, you know what I had to do today? Oh my God, I can't believe it. You know what? I can't believe you do that again. Why are you doing that? Don't do that. One is a complaint. The other was a blame. I can just say, hey, you know what's coming up for me? Because I'm feeling a little frustrated right now. And you know what I'd really like to ask you for is be specific. A hug. Or some time to think about what you've asked me, or just some reassurance or some help with the dishes, or help putting the kids together bed tonight. Is that, and then don't forget this part. Is that something you'd be willing to do? I'm inviting you into my life, and I'm asking sincerely if that's something you would be willing to help me with. Don't forget the sincerity of it. Nobody is entitled to anything. But that doesn't need to shut our voices down, actually. It reminds us that we're sincerely asking for help and support and that that's okay. That's human. We all need that sometimes.
But it truly is a skill. To be fair, I don't think most of us have ever spent a lot of time looking into and getting better at it. We just are reverting back to, like Brooke, and you're reverting back to your old patterns. A lot of time it comes from when we were raised, like, what do you know, all those silly things that all of us know, regardless of your age, that were told to us. So we got to expand our skill set here for this vitally important skill that all of us need to learn how to do much better and practice it more often. Because literally the words coming out of our mouth are going to feel like gravel. They are.
When your heart is going to race and your armpits are going to get sweaty. And I want you to, as crazy as it sounds, delight in that, because we know that's the way we've got to go. That is the direction we need to go in order to learn how to love the people that we so deeply care about, and in order for the people that you so deeply love to care about you.
This is bringing up a story that's very relevant. I can remember when we first came together, just asking was amazing. And now there'll be times just in our normal flow of our day, and certainly in times we're both feeling stressed for many different reasons, Staci will just turn to me and say, you know what I really need to hear from you right now? No, please let me, like, boom. No problem. And so I'll just voice back what she's asking to affirm for her. It's literally that simple, but most of us never even think that we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, specificity is the best thing that we can do to teach our partners how to love us rather than me guessing.
Another example is I'm completely feeling exhausted tonight, and it seems to me that bedtime always falls on me. What I'd like to ask you for is if you could help me tonight, and maybe we could talk about you taking Tuesdays and Thursdays so that I can have a break. Is that something you'd be willing to do? It's not poetic. It's not romantic. It's clear and it's concise, and you're inviting somebody in. You're allowing somebody in to know your recipe and what it is you actually need, and to give you the opportunity to truly support you. So much of the hesitation from being able to know what it is my partner is asking of me is the clarity sucks.
Right.
I desperately want to help you, but I have no idea what to do. And when I try, I feel like I do it wrong. So I just get exhausted from the whole thing, right? That brings up conflict in me about my own ability to love you. And so I just going to avoid the whole thing. And we are not only turning into assumers, we are turning into avoiders at a rapid rate. So this has got to be something that we really take hold of and practice and challenge ourselves to do. It's a really simple thing to do. What's coming up for me? What I'd like to ask you for? And is that something you'd be willing to do? Practice it, and practice it in the mirror before the ask comes. And don't be afraid to start small. Hey, can you give me a hug? Would you help me with the dishes? Would you mind loading the dishwasher tonight? Is that something you'd be willing to do? Those 3 parts are so important. Okay. So practice them. And our Follow the Fun today is going to help you do just that. Just start with identifying the very simple, specific thing that you feel like would make a small difference. We're not looking at going from completely shut down and voiceless to the best asker on the block. I'm just saying, can we just open the door just a teeny tiny bit, and let's start with something simple that would create a little bit of ease for you. And remember what we talked about. Asking is almost 100% of the thing. Whether you get it or not, you were brave and courageous enough to allow yourself to speak up about something that you know you're really longing for. And that's going to help you start feeling safer in your own skin, validating your own existence, and understanding your own voice to a degree that you can be specific and ask for what it is you ultimately need. And by the way, you might want to ask your partner what they would like to ask you for too. Like, you could be like the person who inspires this in your household by saying, hey, I have some asks I'd like to ask you for. I bet you do too. And you know they do, because they're a human being and we're all sitting on them. How about I ask you one and then you ask me one? And let's play a little game with this, shall we? And that's your Follow the Fun moment. I ask you and ask, you ask me, I ask. And let's have some fun with it. Let's just go back and forth. We don't have to agree. Nobody has to say yes or no. Let's just ask, and then I ask, and you ask, and I ask, and we just see where it takes us.
And if you'd like, share it with us. Tag us on social media and ask, and let us know how it went.
Mm-hmm.
Share with what you ask and what your partner asked you for.
Yeah.
Practice.
And more importantly, what's the feeling like?
Right.
And you start to realize that heaviness of fear and wondering and questioning whether you're good enough, or doubting whether you should say something or bring it up or not, right? Bring it all up. Ask for the simple, silliest stuff, and ask for the big stuff, and see what just happens. Again, nobody's on the hook to say yes or no. It's more about practicing.
We know from the people that we're blessed and grateful to work with that once you start to develop this skill, it starts to really feel good. Mm-hmm. It really does. It's at a very empowering place, not from a place of leverage or manipulation. Never. No. Getting really clear on what it is you're wanting. Clarity is a beautiful thing. And most of us, especially now, we're just in this kind of sea of unknown. How are you doing? We don't know. Clarity is incredibly powerful to embody and encompass and be able to have that ability to decipher and discern and know.
Yeah. So listen, if this episode has hit a nerve with you, here's your next step. Asking is one of 4 core relationship skills. And I built a free 10-minute quiz that tells you which one of the 4 you are living in right now that's creating the most distance in your life. You'll get a personalized Better Love blueprint instantly. So whether you're partnered, single, dating, or rebuilding something really special, these skills are the bones of every relationship you have ever had and will ever have. So go to betterlovequiz.com.
Betterlovequiz.com.
I hesitated there.
No,
Betterlovequiz.com. Take it tonight.
And to be wonderfully acknowledging Brookie was a big part of building this quiz alongside of Staci. Of course, Brookie is the huge part of this. Yeah, we've had a lot of people already take it. So yeah, step in and take it and tell us what you think and how it works for you, and hopefully offers you some good insights too. How do I know where I might be deficient in some skills about love? This is exactly why we developed it.
Yep. And you're not broken and you're not alone. You just haven't been taught the skills that you need yet. I hope that this episode today really highlights that for you. Like, nothing is being, disingenuous here. The intent isn't as malicious as we think, but man, the more fear we live in, the more malicious it feels. So take the quiz and see what comes up for you. All right. Again, before we close, take the quiz. It's 10 minutes. Find out what your 4 skills are. Take it right now. I think it's going to be really eye-opening for you. And last but not least, thank you so much for being here inside the Love Shack with us today. And if this conversation has moved you, helped you a little bit, feel free to share it with somebody who needs to hear it, needs to understand how important this asking is and the assuming and the price of that and what it's costing us. And if you by chance want to leave us a review, we'd also love to hear from you. So remember,
I'm going to say we would really appreciate, I'm going to ask you, please leave us a review.
Yeah.
How about that?
And remember, love isn't enough, but skills are. So learn them, practice them. Come on, I know you can, so that you can live them for the rest of your life. Bye-bye for now.
All right, it's time to leave the Love Shack. But before we part ways, we want you to know our door is always open and we'll leave the porch light on, ready to welcome you back whenever you need a dose of relationship wisdom. For more resources and tools, visit us at loveshacklive.com to dive deeper into the topics we've explored and find additional support for your relationship journey. Stay connected by subscribing to our podcast. Thank you for being part of our Love Shack Live community.